Hi, my name's Carey DeShaw, and I'm a recovering addict. I first started using when I was 10 years old, and the first drug I took was alcohol. It was given to me by my parents, and it just instantly made me feel like I was as good as everyone else. Until that point, I felt like there was something wrong, which is a pretty common feeling for addicts. So by the grace of God, I was led to the 12-step fellowships. And my recovery began on March 17th, 1990, which is what I call my clean date. I'd been in recovery for about 6 years, and it showed up when I was applying for some life insurance. And they made me do a physical test, and it came back that my liver enzymes were elevated. So I went to my doctor, and that's when I was diagnosed with hepatitis C. At that time, which is 1996, they didn't have really good treatment for hep C, and being in the recovery community, I knew a lot of people that had it and that had tried interferon, and they said it made them really sick, and a lot of them didn't get any results. There was only like a 30% cure rate at the time, so I chose not to treat it, which was a big mistake. Well, about a year and a half ago, I was feeling kind of sick, and I even went to the doctor and told him about this feeling that I was having in my chest that felt kind of like I was hungry all the time, even after I ate. And he said that it was probably complications with my hepatitis C. One night, I was feeling a little ill, and when I went into the bathroom, I just threw up blood all over the place. I mean, it was gory. My wife was just really freaked out by it. And I was rushed to the emergency. By the time I got there, I'd lost half the blood in my body. It turns out it was a complication called esophageal varices, which happens in late-stage liver disease. About 3 years before my bleeding episode, my wife had a cancer scare, and through that we discovered that our health insurance was not very good. We ended up with large debt from her treatments. They scheduled a biopsy, and it turned out that she did have cancer, and when we went in for the procedure to remove it, the cancer was gone. It was a miracle. So I went and talked to a broker, and he found us a better plan that covered when you got sick. It wasn't cheap, but it was worth it. What scared me into action was about a year and a half ago. I wasn't feeling well, and I had seen my doctor, and he said that I needed to have my liver checked out and possibly get hep C treatment. But being stubborn, I refused to go and do anything about it until I had a complication called esophageal varices. When I recovered, the doctors there referred me to the University of Washington for a liver transplant evaluation. While undergoing the eval at the University of Washington, I found out that I had developed a cancerous tumor in my liver. And I was very fortunate that the tumor showed up while I was being evaluated, because if I wouldn't have been being watched so closely, I probably wouldn't have went to the doctor and said, "Hey doc, I think something's up," because I didn't feel any different. After I had recovered enough from the esophageal varices episode to receive interferon treatments, I went and talked to a doctor, a hepatologist in Burien. It was the first time I'd ever seen anybody to be treated for hep C, and he looked at my record and talked to me, and he didn't have good news. He said that it was too late for me to have treatment. I was 5th stage, and that my only hope was a transplant at the University of Washington. Luckily, I told him I'd already been going under the evaluation process, but he gave me some good words of advice. He said that there's 20 people knocking on the door, and they're only letting in 3 at a time. So you better be down there every day bugging them, because time is not on your side. The next morning, after talking to the hepatologist, God spoke to me when I awoke. He said, "Carey, go to the UW now." I woke my wife and said, "Kathy, I got to go to the UW right now. God just told me." She said, "Well, can't you wait?" I said, "No, I got to go." I went straight to the UW, and even though I didn't have all my testing completed, I had a couple of immunizations and a couple other tests, I was able to be placed on the list that day. After I got on the list, there was a lot of praying going on. We were concerned because with liver cancer, if it grows too big or if you get more tumors, you can get so sick that they won't transplant you. During that time I was praying and meditating. And during one of my meditation times, God told me, "Carey, don't worry, you're going to get a liver." From that point on, I was at peace and was just waiting on the Lord. I was on the list for exactly 4 months and 4 days. My first call from the UW was to let me know that I was in the top 5 and to keep my cell phone on at all times. The next call, they said, "Come on in, we have a liver for you." I was right in the middle of a job. I was working the day they called. We rushed to the UW, and it was a false alarm. After being prepped for surgery, they came back and said that the donor liver was not acceptable, and they sent me home. Man, that was a roller coaster ride for my wife and I and friends. 3 days later, on October 7th, 2011, I got the call again. This time it was a go. About 5-6 hours after the transplant, I started feeling ill, and I had a bleeder going on, and they had to take me back in and fix that. Since I got out of surgery, things have gone well. I was in the hospital for 7 days, and the transplant team at the UW were a godsend. At one point in my hospital room, they gathered, and it was like having a room full of angels, and I told them how grateful I was for the work they had done. I was released 7 days later from my transplant. Besides just the physical pain of healing from the trauma of the surgery, this is about the lowest point in the whole ordeal. And since I haven't been working and my wife's been unemployed, our finances are pretty much bankrupt. And it's just been really hard on my family and my wife and me trying to survive. A lot of things are going to have to change because we just don't have any more money left to pay our living expenses. About the only thing that we have right now is or our main concern right now is just to keep the health insurance up. Everything else is going away. And it's just really hard on me. I feel worse not being able to pay my bills because I've learned to be responsible, and this has just been a tough time for us not being able to do that. How is God working in my life today? I give all the glory to God. He started this whole thing in 1992 when I went through that transplant with Cheryl. And then the health insurance being in place and all the wonderful people that I've met in the hospital and throughout the ordeal with the transplant team. It's just all been a godsend. How can people help my family today? Just by love and support and whatever financial needs that you can donate, whatever God puts on your heart. You know, we don't know how He's going to work, but anything can help us right now, and we're very grateful for any donations.